Right then, I'm going to go through another dream. So I'm going to go through this one purely because it tags on, I feel, to the one I just read, that I just went through, which was to do with house renovations and stuff like that. This is a theme actually that does come up quite frequently, actually. So I just happened to look through the titles actually of all the dreams I've logged. I write down on kind of like a log of like the contents, let's say, of the dream journal. So I go, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go with that one next. Page, what's that? And I find it and go from there. I've had a quick read of it. There's not a huge amount to this dream, but it does link into other bits, and also the dream book that I've got. It also links into that as well. So I thought I'll use it as an opportunity as kind of like a tag on, let's say, to the one I've just gone through. And we'll see. Yeah. Let's do this one then. So I had a dream where this has got a few of the usual friends I mention in quite a few videos actually. So this dream I remember was my friend Darren. So he was building a sort of metal house, let's say. It was like a massive warehouse looking sort of thing initially. It looked like a really large metal barn from the outside, and it looked like he was building this in his garden, but the area on which it was being built was very, very large. So a very, very big plot of land that this property was on, plenty of room. And I was walking from the area of his current home, so I was kind of walking from, let's say, behind me forward, lots of grass, and then I was watching this what's it called, this building being erected. Okay. So I was walking from the area of his current home, I guess, I'm assuming, looking at the shell of this metal barn. It was made of a black corrugated metal that these builders were constructing this sort of barn from. I was able to peek inside of these like double swung open doors of this structure, and I could see that there were builders at work inside who seemed to be putting in a really lovely modern kitchen, really lovely kitchen. And then I realised it sort of dawned on me that that what he was doing was he was building a new house. It was on the same plot, but he was building a new house rather than any sort of barn, summer house, like an annex or anything like that. And I saw a builder, I think took in like a large pane of glass that was taken out of a door. I don't really know why, but taken out of a door to do something with. And I also noticed my other friend Chris, and he was doing the same thing really as what the other builder was doing, and he was going to get some glass himself. So he was looking. So he was looking to get involved and to help out to an extent as well. And I also remember Dan, another friend in there, who was who had a really long piece of wood. It was very very thin in the width of it, this wood, and it was probably around about 6 to 8 meters long. So it was very, very long. And this panel was actually for me to work on. So that's what I was going to be doing. But with Dan, he was also trying to help out but it did cause some issues, because between Dan and Chris, I think they'd somehow damaged some of this wood, so much so actually that I couldn't actually use it for the purposes that I'd actually planned for it, which I was annoyed about. I think I was using and I was kind of making my own workbench kind of thing that I had this wood on. So it was like two chairs, and I'd put it on top of across these 2 chairs just to balance it on the top, that I was using while I was working on this wood. So it's a kind of like do-it-yourself sort of workbench. The wood was very narrow in width, and it was also quite thin. And then that's when I realised that what I was actually working on was likely cladding to go on the outside of this corrugated metal shell to make it look, I guess, a bit more presentable. After that, after what they had done with this wood, again, this is Dan and Chris. It wasn't really very usable, but I didn't want to obviously give up on it, and so I continued doing what I could do. But he was going for a metal structure and then a wooden cladding, because it was going with a metal structure because it was stronger, and it was also cheaper as well at the same time. Sorry, I just paused it just for a second there because the washing machine's like bleeping. It drives me mad when that happens. So I thought rather than you having to hear bleeping in the background, I'd quickly pause it and go sort that out. So I've stopped that all now. But yeah, as I said, so working on this metal structure, which was basically stronger, and the wooden cladding was just basically just to make it look a little bit nicer. Okay, so what were my thoughts on the dream? I didn't write a transparency statement, which I often do write when there's something that I can think of that could have influenced the dream. Sometimes I write a transparency statement to say absolutely nothing could have affected it, but I would assume because I didn't write anything, there was nothing really that would have affected this particular dream. But my thoughts were, could the dream be about the physical, in that I was being given the hint that a summer house. Oh, okay. What I mean by this is, and I've mentioned this in other videos, especially inheritance. Inheritance is one that goes through basically talking about barns in the garden and stuff like that. So that's it. I would recommend you check that one out. That's a very interesting one, but that was one I was quite convicted about because loads of scriptures came up. I got loads of confirmations on that, and then I'm still to this day. I mean, this was it's been going on now for almost a couple of years of me not quite knowing what to do about getting because I wanted to get a summer house, you see, in our back garden. It was going to be really, really large, that would take up basically the entire width of our garden. And it was, it's basically for chilling out in, obviously, but also I was going to use it for an office so that I'm not working in our living room, which is, I work literally at this dining room table. And we've got the lounge, well, it's all one room, so if people want to watch TV and I'm working, they can't, because I can't have the sound and trying to speak to people, and it just doesn't work. So for the family, I thought it'd be good to get this summer house sort of office thing created out there, but I just don't know if it'll work during the winter. I'm just not convinced that it'll be warm enough, so it will only be it will literally be a summer house, and I would only be able to use it for the summer, whereas I wanted something really that could be used all year round. But the way I kind of looked at it is, we've got a brick outhouse that doesn't have heating as such. It's got an electric radiator that I can put on to warm it up, but it's single skin brick and it's freezing. So I was thinking, well, if I'm going to, we're going to get something built that's going to be a wooden shed-like structure, it's going to be insulated, but what better than bricks? I was kind of like, I just don't think it's going to be warm enough, So we'll have to see there. I'm still, as I said, I haven't done it yet. I'm very undecided. It's a lot of money, and it's a temporary structure because it's made of wood. I'm like, don't know whether to do that. So I didn't know with this dream, because it was a shed, and then they were putting wood around the outside, whether it was kind of maybe indicating to me that maybe I should look at a metal shed and then just clad it so it looks nicer. And maybe that's the route to go. I wasn't sure. As I said, I'm not sure whether this was talking about my own physical decision making at the time, or whether it's talking about something more. Could it have spiritual meaning in that? Obviously, a house represents our body, the temple for the Holy Spirit, and maybe even relates to, or could it relate to spiritual armoring, because if this is a metal structure, like an armor, could it be to do with that? Also, given I put here, given it was Darren's house, was it representing him receiving a future spiritual home in heaven? Because of obviously when we have, extra homes, let's say, that aren't our normal homes, it can often make you think of that, which is John 14, verses 2 I've written here, but I'm going to expand upon that a bit more, go a little bit further with that. But it's finally happened. We've got John that I can read out. So I'm going to go through this one. This is the NIV version, so it's not normally the one I normally read out. I normally read out the King James Version, which I've probably read out across my 120 videos. I've probably read out 3 times maybe, but I've got it in a frame that's just over there, just out of view. But it's the King James Version. This is going to be the NIV version. So this will kind of confirm something I mentioned before anyway. So I'm going to start with, let's see where we're going to go. Yeah, I'm just going to do this one. So I'm going to do, what did I say? John 14 verses 1 through to 4 is what I'll go with. So John 1 to 4 is, and this is Jesus speaking here. Okay, so do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going. Okay. Thomas does go on to sort of say, Lord, we don't know where you're going. And he goes on to explain, but again, I won't go into that. The main takeaway is going to be that he's talking about heaven. Again, I would link in here the videos that are to do with marriages. There's a couple of marriage ones where it talks about the whole process of marriages that say in that area at that time. And when he's talking about my Father's house has many rooms, what he's talking about there, this is where the cultural aspect of having a Bible is really, really helpful. If you have a study Bible that's a cultural one, I've mentioned it quite a few times, so I'll cite that as well. The Bible that I use, again, I'm not paid for this promotion. This is just literally me helping you. If you're interested in the cultural Bible that I've got, I'll just quickly mention it. So it's by, well, hang on a second. It looks like that. Okay, and it's called the Zondervan Cultural Background Study Bible. This is the one I read from, as I said, is an NIV version, New International Version. Okay, so that's all I wanted to cover off on that particular dream. But I wrote myself a little note. I put C here, page 62. So, oh yeah, sorry. This dream was the 29th of November, 2025. So I'm going to jump forward to where it says here, page 62, and just see what it's talking about. Now, this was part of a dream I haven't filmed yet. Okay, I put lots of stars next to this. This is one I am going to film, which is the dream before the one I'm going to cover off, because this was the 26th of the 2nd, 2025. So it's actually really out of order. But for some reason I've recorded it later than I should have done. But it was only because, where did I find it? So it's 62, I said, didn't I? No. Oh yeah, 60, page 61. It's only to mention that on that particular day, I did have a dream. There's another dream where that night where I was at Darren's house again. So it was a repeat, but he now had a new house. So again, the one I'm just describing is I'm seeing the building of a house. Now I'm actually seeing the finished house, and it's a new house. And we're talking in the garden, nothing more than that really. But it's a new house for him. And I wrote, and I put here, I only wrote about another dream like yesterday, which was about 20 pages earlier, which is all about Darren building a house. I thought, how odd! I've had another dream. I mean, obviously this is well out of order, and actually back to front, because this dreaming I'm seeing of a completed house is actually in the completed house. When did I say it was? February 2025, whereas the dream I saw of him constructing it was in November 2025. So they're back to front, but actually in this dream journal, yeah, they're back to front. So I would see the building first, and then I would see the finished thing, which is kind of interesting as to the way that kind of played out. But it did take me in a direction I wanted to cover off to do with houses. So what that actually means in the dream book. Again, another book I will cite. is the dream book, which is this one. So this is the dream book called The Divinity Code, which is by Adam F. Thompson and Adrian Beale. Again, I will cite it in the description, but in me writing this, you see a second time where I could see Darren building a house. I've just written about Darren building a house. So again, this is another reason why a lot of the, the revelation that I get on things is sometimes because I'm writing all these dreams in quite quick succession after another, and then I start seeing these similarities that I didn't when I was recording a dream, and then a month or 3 months later, I record another dream. Well, I'm not thinking about it, am I? Because it was 3 months ago, I won't remember it. But if I'm writing it and I've written it and I only wrote about that 20 pages ago, then I'm suddenly going to remember it. So it's really, really helpful. And I also use word searches as well, because I can search all of my notes for a key word. And this did happen with one of my series. I put in the word bridge. I was like, what's that dream that had a bridge in it? I just couldn't find it. So I typed in bridge and it was like hit, 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 hit. I was like, what? I've had all these bridge dreams. What's that all about? And I've had this with other things as well. And so I found that quite helpful. I think another one I did it with was like zombie. Put in zombie and it was like boom, 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 all these different hits. Okay, right, so I've had a lot of zombie dreams then, I guess. Sometimes it's not always something that you can recall easily. Right, so I'm going to go on to this house. What does house building mean? According to the Divinity Code, which is a dream, like a description sort of thing. So it says, what does the color red mean? Oh, it means this. It could mean that. It could mean this, 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 and this. And this is a scripture that backs that up. So this is all from a biblical point of view, that everything is evidenced as to the meaning of what that means. Okay, so this is exactly the same thing. So I'm not going to cite all the scriptures because that would go on forever. But I mean, what does house building mean? Because that's a key element, obviously, of these two dreams. House building, where's it gone? I thought, could it be to do with building a house? Is it representing a church, maybe? Is it planting a church? Especially given that it's in Darren's garden and he already has a home. As I said, I mentioned previously, maybe it's to do with a heavenly home that it's representing, because I've had that multiple times. In fact, yeah. Okay, and actually, yeah. No, I won't go through that one. Sorry, another one's just popped up in my mind, but it was so basic that I'm not going to include that actually. Right, so house. Sorry, not house building, sorry, house. What does house mean? House building, sorry, was the title, a provisional title I wrote down for this film, for this video. So that's why I got thrown a little bit there. But what does house mean in this dream book? So 1, it could mean an individual. 2, could mean a church. 3, could mean someone's home or a household. Could mean, number 4, yourself. 5, it could mean a covering. 6, it could mean a ministry. It could 7 mean a business. It could 8 mean a Israel. 9, it could be a glorious individual, the church or ministry. If it's a Western red cedar house, very specific. Number 10, it could mean death if the house is being demolished, because it's like, if you are the house and that's being demolished, it could mean death. 11, spiritual renewal. If there's interior renovation and decoration, that's literally the previous dream, was to do with interior renovation and decoration. And I said that this was before even looking at the dream book, just so you know as well. I didn't look at this until afterwards. So that one I went through when I was talking about the Holy Spirit and stuff like that, that was all my own revelation, if that makes sense. It wasn't to do with this. So interior renovation, decoration, meaning spiritual renewal. Superficial changes would be exterior renovations. So superficial changes. 13, delivered from a demon for a cleaned house. Again, I mentioned that in the previous video. Number 14, demon oppressed or possessed if the house is unclean. And I was in the dream, there was an unclean house. It was full of dirty stuff. I was taking it all out. So demon oppressed, potentially. Okay. And I put, wow, in reading all of this kind of stuff through, tons of dreams come to mind around renovations of houses, cleaning them, unclean, dirty ones. So it's really, I put here, this is really a tag on dream, for the one that's on page 42. Well, that's the one I'm literally just talked through with you. So that made sense for me to go through that with you there. Yeah, so that's really the end of the video. It was going to be a bit of a shorter one, but as I said, it was all to do with home renovations and stuff like that. As I said, I have had others that are to do with houses and stuff like that. I don't think there's anything that comes to mind that I necessarily want to cover off here, because if there was any other ones, it would probably be in one of the other books, and it could be in any one of these books actually. So I don't think I can easily track down anything that I'm thinking of, because I have been thinking of some just literally in the moment. But I wonder whether it's this one. Bear with me just a moment. Just going to see if it is this one, because if it is, I might as well throw it in. Yeah, it is. I've already bookmarked it. I've actually already bookmarked it for the dream that's on the opposite side of that page. I'll see that as a sign that I'll go through this one now then. I'll just quickly do that one. As I said, there's not much to it. So this dream is, yeah, I'm just going to read through this. This is 8th the 9th, 2025. So again, 3 months between the first dream roughly, and then 6-7 months, let's say 7 months, yeah, in between the other two. So this one, I decided, I'll literally read this because obviously I've got no prep. And I didn't really prep for this one anyway. So I put here, I only decided to record this because I've had one similar. Yeah, I have had one similar actually. I didn't record it straight away, but one day later, and I just can't forget it. So I feel when I've got dreams that I can't forget, that I need to record them then at that point, because most dreams I'll just forget in seconds. You know, you go to the toilet, it's gone. Don't remember it. I haven't got a clue what I just dreamt about, even though I know I was dreaming. Anyway, so this one, there was just a small part where I felt I was in my own garden. However, this garden was huge. So again, I've mentioned that in Darren's garden, it was a really big garden. And this was in both of them. Darren's garden was very big. In this one, my garden was really big. Really, really big. A lot bigger than my own garden. Yeah, really huge. And I was basically standing. I had a really big home that was actually behind me, and in front of me was loads of large grassy land. Yeah, so it was kind of in front of me to a certain distance and lengthways. It was really big. It was like the size of a school field. You know, well, slightly smaller than a school field, but I mean it was really big. And yeah, looking to my left, I remember looking down a long stretch of around about 100 to 150 meters or so quite a long way. And my wife had actually put up, I'd gone out or something and I'd come back, and she put these T-shaped structures which were running all the way along our garden, these metal structures, T-shaped, and they were black, steel girders, again, metal, black. So I've not read this in conjunction at all, and we were just talking about the shed that was black and metal, weren't we? Which is interesting. Again, I don't know, just interesting that there's a similarity there. And they were all straight line. Yeah, I put like power cables, pylons, but yeah, they were T structure. They weren't actually very tall. They were tall, but they weren't really tall. So nothing like a pylon really, but it's just me trying to use ways of describing it. To my left, they were going ever so slightly downhill, covering the length of the garden. So this would be, again, I've written 100, 150 meters, something like that. Absolutely no explanation from my wife as to what they were, but I said, you know, seeing the downhill, yeah, what a weird thing to say. Seeing that I saw that this thing was downhill, I tell you what I would describe it as. You know, when you've got a ski lift and you've got the ski things that go across, don't they, either side of this structure? It was very similar to that, but on a much, much smaller scale. But I actually said to her, do you know what we could do? We can make a zip line out of that. And I was like, it was like a really random thing to say, zip line. Why do I want to make a zip line? Now, I've had a zipline dream before, and so this is why I actually recorded this dream. Zipline. What a random thing to say. What a random thing to set up in your garden. Yeah. So my thoughts were, well, I've had a zipline dream before, and it was on this. It was on the financial meltdown video. Okay, thank you. That saves me finding it. Now there'll be 2 financial meltdown ones. This will be season 1, because I did a recap of financial meltdown actually only like a week ago or 2 weeks. I can't remember how long ago it was. I've only been re-filming these dreams for the new season for 3 weeks, so it would have been within the last 3 weeks, but I think it's probably within the last 2. But this would be the original one from season 1, financial meltdown. You'll find it in there. In that dream, I was walking up a steep grassy hill, and on the top of there was a zip line. However, I was hesitant because I was carrying papers and things in my hands, and I felt like it represented the rapture. Okay, the zip line, this just sort of whooshing off in the sky. For some reason, it made me think of the rapture, and I was maybe trying to take things with me. That was it. It was like I'm leaving this earth. Let's say you can't take it with you, and all of these papers I was holding, I felt like they were maybe legal papers or something like that. It was something that was tying me to earth. So it's almost like the deeds to my house and stuff like that. Items, things I own, I think is what it represented, these papers. And I was holding on to these papers. I wouldn't let go. And I was thinking, well, I can't do this zip line with all these papers in my hand because I'm not going to be able to hold properly. So it's like, well, you've got to make a decision. Are you dropping these papers and getting on this zip line, or are you staying here? You see what I mean? That's what it kind of felt like. Yeah. So I'll link in that other dream, but it was just that large land garden, and I completely forgot that it was black metal, to be honest. I remember that they were T-shaped, but yeah, T-shaped. It's not like it was cross, not quite a cross. But yeah, that's where I leave that one. So went on a little bit longer, but I just wanted to go through those extra little bits there. So hopefully you found all of that absolutely incredibly amazing. And I will, I probably won't do another video today. I wouldn't have thought I'd done 3. But I hope, as I said, hopefully you found that interesting. Do check out those few videos that I've mentioned there. So Inheritance, which is in season 1. You've got the couple of marriage videos, which will talk about the whole marriage process of what it was like at that time of Jesus, what the marriage was like, and that massively feeds into that John 14. Huge amount. Explains what he means by, obviously in my Father's house is talking about heaven, of course, but it does represent marriages, and it's a lot clearer if you understand the cultural aspect of that. So watch those ones. I think this stuff I talk about the marriage covenant and how that's works out. I don't know if I go into the detail level of, I may not go into there's other bits I'm thinking, I don't know if I go into that sort of detail, so I won't even mention it. Otherwise you'll go looking for it and it won't be there. So yeah, but I certainly do talk about obviously the marriage, what's talked about there, the cultural aspect, how that all works. I may go into modern marriage possibly, and what that represents and how that's modeled on the Bible specifically. That again, I imagine if you quizzed 1,000 people on the street, I would be very surprised if one person actually even knew that. But again, I don't know that it's in that video. So there's a couple of marriage ones. I'll put 2 of them in there, I think, and then that way it might be in one of those, because it's a Holy Spirit message I got to do with marriage and covenants and stuff as well, which I'll put in there as well. But yeah, zipline one, yeah, interesting. Yeah, so check out that one in the Financial Meltdown. Financial Meltdown one, by the way, do also watch the season 2 extra revelation, because it's quite a big revelation. Okay, so watch that obviously afterwards, otherwise you won't see that progression of revelation. Okay, there we go, half-hour mark. I can't seem to escape the half hour today. Right, yeah, I'll see you on the next one.